complete sweep of all 8 of those races. And that's a recognition, I believe, that North Carolina voters know that Republicans really stand for safety and security around the state. They know the policies that we've put forward are working, the fact that North Carolina, despite COVID-19, is still in really good financial shape. Now, we have some sectors that are going to need some help, and we're all prepared to go back to work and make sure that we get that done. What I'll also say, and of course we're here at a party today, and there's going to be some partisan flavor to the next few weeks, but at some point in the near future, we have to eventually put aside being Republicans, being Democrats, Libertarians, whatever else, and realize and recognize the fact that we're all Americans. I, like so many, have seen some of the things that have happened where things have turned violent, where there's been property destruction. And I'll tell you, I've talked to folks of all political stripes back home and around the state, and people are saying enough is enough. So the one thing that I definitely want to make sure to get out there is that for these folks who want to go out and try to tear these cities up and cause all this problem, is that the people of North Carolina do not stand with that, and they do not want that to happen. So I'm calling on everybody at every level of government to make sure that we do all we can to stop all of this nonsense. It has to happen. But where do we go from here? First off, we get past the elections, we make sure the will of the voters is followed, that the elections are done the way they're supposed to be done. We move forward and we get on with the business at hand as the elected leaders. I want to see us continue to build on examples. For example, the way we did the COVID project. We came through with legislation that passed almost unanimously. Really build to try to get those coalitions, because we know that our best days are those that we can always work together and try to find opportunities to find joint needs and find joint solutions to those. But I'm very proud that we've maintained our majority. Not only that we've expanded our majority, but as we've always done, once we get there, we're going to also work with folks of the minority party and make sure that we work for policies that are the best for North Carolina. Thank you. And I think we'll take questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Any questions, guys?
So if you just quickly say, will you folks seek re-election to your leadership positions for 2021?
Yes, I will be running again to serve as Speaker.
Yes.
You going to run as Speaker too?
I don't think they'll let me do that, but no, I'm.
I think the rules say that, but
Really?
you're going to run for Senate leader.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you repeat the second half? Yeah, so I think that this is what we see when we have tens of millions of dollars come in from places like California and New York to be spent here in North Carolina. I think they're both very, very close. We may actually enter into a runoff situation in the Attorney General's race, but certainly too close to call at this point in time. And I have to say on the governor's race that, the power of incumbency is very real. Having, $20+ million come in from out of state is very, very real. I'm very proud of the race that Dan and his team and his family ran. We think that they did a very good job in getting that as close as they did. And obviously we will wish him well for the next bit. But really, when we see that type of outside money coming into North Carolina, it really does have an impact.
Michael made me think of something on the outside amount of outside money. That's the same thing that we saw in the Senate races and in the House races. There's never been this much money brought from outside the state of North Carolina to try to flip a state legislature. I don't know if it's ever happened. I've been told the numbers like 80% of the money that came in was from out of state. But you know what that proves? The fact we maintained a majority, it proves that you just can't buy elections on these legislative races. People are going to vote for folks they know and trust in those local legislative districts. And I think I think that may be a lesson to those out-of-state groups that they don't need to try to come to North Carolina and buy these legislative elections.
So I'll just offer my congratulations to Governor Cooper on his reelection. Look forward to working with him. Hopeful that we will have an opportunity to get some more things done in the next 2 years than we were able to get done in the last 2 years. On the Attorney General's race, I'll echo a little bit about the outside money. I think one of the interesting things there is how close that race was. And how I believe that one reason that Attorney General Stein is ahead at this point is because of an ad that he ran that was proven to be false, that he put millions of dollars behind, and I think it's unfortunate that that's the way it turned out.
Senator Berger, still the will of the people is that Governor Cooper should be reelected for 4 years. And one of his key elements of his platform has been Medicaid expansion. It seems like that an argument can be made that that's the will of the people now. What is your response to that? Because you have consistently opposed the idea.
So in all of the contested legislative races, that was an issue in those races as well. The Democratic candidate in each race ran as a proponent of Medicaid expansion. In each of those contested races, the Democratic candidate was rejected. It is my belief that Governor Cooper won his race, clearly won, but I don't believe it was because of his position on Medicaid expansion.
I'll echo that. Just that I don't think that you saw an overwhelming mandate. I don't think that you saw you saw that as being the defining issue. In fact, if you look at the House races where they talked about Medicaid expansion and where the House Republican had voted, had not supported those kinds of packages, those candidates won those races. So I don't think that that's an issue that really turned anything from what I can tell. And I do, of course, congratulate Governor Cooper on his election. In fact, I called him earlier this morning. We had a great conversation. And, of course, once we get past all of the parts about certification and if there's recounts and all that, need to move on and make sure that we work together for the good of North Carolina.
Do you have any sense of what kind of voter voted for Trump and Tillis, but also Cooper? Can you give any sense of who that voter is?
No, I think we're going to have to wait and see what that looks like, and it very well may be that people who voted in one race didn't vote in another race, so we'll have some undercounts and some other currents with it. I think that by and large what we did see was that the absentee voting, which started very, very early in the race, was overwhelmingly in support of the Democratic candidates. And as we went through the election cycle, particularly with the president being on the ground here in North Carolina, his family and the vice president being on the ground, that we saw enthusiasm surge, which is why we saw late-breaking gains where the Republicans actually managed to win 9 out of the last 11 days of early voting, where we saw a huge spike in Election Day turnout. And so with record turnout across the board, for there to be a good win for the president, a good win for Senator Tillis, we really did see that the enthusiasm peaked with it. So we'll have time to kind of dissect what that's all going to look like, but I have a feeling it probably is going to have more to do with those who voted early and those who voted late than it is any other particular, partisanship or other issues.
How do you feel like the process worked in the state? Obviously, North Carolina allowed the processing of votes early, which Pennsylvania did not.
Right.
How do you feel like that worked out?
Look, I think that the rules that the legislature put together, the law that they passed and was signed by the governor, was implemented well by the Board of Elections. We had issues on several occasions where they were trying to change the rules after voting started, but we're very comfortable with and have always been very comfortable with a 3-tier series of absentee, early voting, and then election day. So the fact that we actually got through last night, and we've got a couple races that are going to be very close, and we're going to see what happens with provisionals and outstanding absentees, but for the most part we're pretty comfortable with what these margins look like, and we're going to certify North Carolina for Donald Trump and for Tom Tillis, and we're looking at those House races. So I think the process overall has worked fairly well. We just need to make sure that we get through this last counting of the provisionals and seeing what's going on with the absentees and get everything certified. You want to follow up on this?
I just will say that we were part of the litigation on that, and I do believe that the law that we passed that was bipartisan, as mentioned, signed by the governor, should be followed. I don't believe courts, I don't believe administrative bodies should be just arbitrarily extending statutes or frankly violating statutes. The voters want certainty of the elections. They want to know who received the most votes, get that certified, and move on. Anytime you start having delay and dragging things out, all you do is you create concerns and worries of uncertainty and was something done wrong in the minds of those voters. And look, you can look out there and you can see that, frankly, from both sides of the political aisle, folks saying that we need to get on and follow the law and make sure that we count the ballots on the day they're supposed to be there, make sure you count the ones that were in. Because anytime you start doing things different, it raises questions. We're hearing that in Pennsylvania, I guess in Michigan as well. And so I hope that the U.S. Supreme Court will finally weigh in on this and give clarity. At the end of the day, it's about, do legislative bodies that pass validly adopted laws, do those mean something, or can just unelected bureaucrats or can just judges just willy-nilly pull things out of the sky and create it? That is a very dangerous thing. We don't need that happening in North Carolina or anywhere else.
Just to add to that, especially when the changes are things that were considered by the legislature and rejected, to have an unelected administrative body to then, notwithstanding that rejection by the legislature, go ahead and make those changes anyway. I think that's a perversion of the rule of law.
Just wondering, who all are anticipating these recounts?
On the House side, we have some close ones. We're still looking at those. Anytime those fall in the lines, we'll look. I can't give you names of races at this point, but I know that those numbers are being crunched, and I anticipate, frankly, both probably happening in both chambers and all sides of the state where it's happened. But we don't know that yet.
Yeah, the same with the Senate. I think we've got one race that's fairly close, but I have not looked at whether or not, even at the current margin, it fits within the recount opportunity. We just have to wait and see what the final numbers are.
Yeah, I will say there's not there, even if you take the close elections, there's not enough that would affect the Republican majority in the House either way. And same with the Senate.
That's correct. Go ahead, Gary.
You don't have to go long on this, but redistricting will be coming up in 21. Do you think it'll be done differently compared to the 2010 cycle? Particularly, do you see 2019 and how you did it in 2019 being more of a model or a template to go about doing redistricting?
I would say on the Senate side, that's going to be the point we would start from, is the way we handled things in 2019. We'll see if that's a way for us to do it, but uncertain at this point.
Yep. I think we just need to look at the process. I like the way that we did the open process where everything happened. I think that was a great model. It was, of course, there we were changing existing districts. When it comes to really to the 2020, you're going to have you've got a census. You're going to have new districts based on population. So you're going to have major shifts. That's going to be a difference. I don't know that folks have fully realized the extent of shifts. You're going to see more districts concentrated in your urban and suburban areas as opposed to the rural areas, just because of the shift in population. So as opposed to a lot of the trimming around the edges like you saw in this last time, you're going to start with a blank slate and go from there for legislative races, congressional races, and everything. But I've been very proud of the way we have done redistricting. And I want to echo what Senator Berger said. There's all this talk. You'd hear folks on the Democrat side saying gerrymander, gerrymander. Well, the districts that a Republican majority was elected with, folks need to get a little history. In 2010, when Republicans took the majority, we were elected with maps drawn by Democrats. This year, we were elected with a majority with maps that largely were dictated by what a Democratic map drawer had done. So there ought to be the end of this talk about gerrymandering and all that. That's why Republicans are in charge, because we have now, through these cycles, proven that is not the case. The reality is the voters of this state chose to have a Republican majority in the state Senate and in the state House. And every time these groups want to come in and try to attack, they're really insulting those voters, frankly. They're not respecting the will of the voters in those districts around the state who know those senators, who know those House members. You come to statewide races, right? It's kind of hard to get in and just see. You don't generally run into the governor at the food line, right? I mean, it just doesn't happen. But the thing about legislative candidates is that we are in such small areas. We're among our constituents on a regular basis, church, school, the grocery store, wherever it is. And those communities know their legislators. And so I can't stress that enough. I think it goes to the fact about the out-of-state money as well. At the end of the day, have confidence in the voters and respect their decision. So I do hope that all that talk ends. But as we move forward to redistricting, what I don't want to see is another decade of endless litigation, continual redraws, sniping about this. The people want us to get on to important business. I would be scared to venture a guess as to how many hours and how much money was spent with these constant attacks of our district, Senator Berger. It just was unreal. And at the end of the day, we drew districts basically the way the Democrats wanted them, and we have Republican majorities. So hopefully that'll be the end of that conversation. But again, we're going to move on with it next year, and maybe this time, North Carolina will not be the top litigated state when it comes to redistricting. Recognize that the voters of this state decided they wanted a majority of Republicans in Congress, a majority of Republicans in the legislature, and by the way, an amazing United States Senator in Tom Tillis.
So I'll just go ahead and conclude. I want to offer congratulations to Speaker Moore and Senator Berger for the great wins that they had in their caucuses, and all of our Republican winners last night. We actually had a fantastic election day. When you look at the margins that we provided for President Trump and Senator Tillis, you look at how well we did with all of our congressional seats across the state, winning in the House caucus, the Senate caucus, the Council of State races. We had a tremendous group of candidates that won, and of course on the judicial slate. We cannot overemphasize how important it is to go 8 for 8 with those statewide judicial races. So I want to thank everybody again for coming out here today, and we're going to get back at the work of making sure we get these things certified and across the line. Thank you.
Oh, it's Gary. We hit our ceiling on that third district.